Hello and welcome to a special exclusive episode from this Sports Buzz perspective. We're going to take a look back at some past episodes, particularly one example of this panelist being right. But I'm not here to gloat. I want to talk and provide some perspective because as life's irony provides, I will be on the Sports Buzz this week and Brianto is going to make me look foolish. So, this is my... But let's take a look.
I know what you're going to say. Golden State versus Cleveland. Who do you have in the finals? Let's start with Tice.
Oh, start with me. All right. I got Golden State in 5 games.
Wow.
It's just because the format is switched to 2 games, 2-2-1-1-1. So it'd be Game 5 in Golden State. If it was, I'd like Cleveland's chances better, honestly, if they had the 3 home games in a row. But it's just in terms of Oklahoma City being a great matchup for Golden State and really giving them problems. I don't see Cleveland giving the defensive problems to Golden State that the Thunder did, and it's just a matchup. I think they're gonna have their way with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, and they're gonna and the Warriors do what they do better than the Cavs.
While that may be the case, Cleveland's offense is going to make up for whatever they lack defensively. They've found a great rhythm. Granted, in the East, if they're able to carry that over, I expect the Cleveland Cavaliers, and let me be clear, because this does not need to be re-brought up, the Golden State Warriors are the better team, period. The Cleveland Cavaliers are going to use the context of the situation to win. This Golden State team is wore down.
What does that even mean?
Well, I'm explaining it. At the end of the season, you saw them lose to teams like the Los Angeles Lakers, even compete with the Utah Jazz. We saw that the spotlight being burnt on the Golden State Warriors for the last year, it is wearing them down just a little bit. The advantage is to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They haven't been in the spotlight. So from that standpoint, I think it's a 7-game series, an absolutely epic series. Cavaliers win.
I will take Golden State probably in 5 or 6.
I would say Golden State in 6.
I was right. Now, we make a lot of predictions here on Sports Buzz, and being the only panelist who got that one right, I think, proves the general reality with prediction sports media, and that is that it's a farce. Bias is impossible to remove from the situation. That's why I encourage you, if you're going to consume any prediction, sports media, you better be predicting the game yourself, because that's your opportunity to see what bias you have. I've learned a lot in my time on the Sports Buzz through some terrible predictions, to be honest. Predicted the Bears to win the Super Bowl with Jay Cutler and Jim Trespin. That didn't work out. I predicted the Anthony Davis and the New Orleans Pelicans to defeat the Golden State Warriors last year in the playoffs. So I can be wrong, but I'm not afraid to be. I think there's a very important value that comes along with that. Anybody you listen to is going to have bias. You need to be aware of your own. Don't waste time trying to figure out theirs, because every prediction you listen to, whether it's right or wrong, comes with a little bit of bias. The reality is, the biggest reason why I ended up getting this prediction right was because of my natural bias for LeBron James. I've seen the man play my entire life, through his entire career at the professional level. So it's impossible for me to truly remove any bias that I have, positive or negative, for the guy. Combine this with the fact that I have some interesting memories and interesting life lessons that have certainly helped me understand a little bit of the athlete's perspective, but also understand a lot about the overall societal shift that we've taken as we dive deeper and deeper into this social media landscape. And I'm mostly talking about the sports media at this point, but it does transfer over into other aspects of life as well. Now, I want to talk about LeBron James and the man who is on the cover of Sports Illustrated at the age of 16. Hyped more than any athlete, likely since Bo Jackson. He's lived up to the hype. Let me say that again. It's 2016. He has lived up to the hype. It may seem impossible in our society where everything is the greatest, we overreact to everything. I don't think we're overreacting to LeBron James at this point. His plan has worked perfectly, and you can criticize him for being the most calculated athlete we've ever seen. A little bit of preparation goes a long way. Any good broadcaster will tell you that. I think any good athlete would say the same thing. He's prepared not only his time on the court, he's prepared his decisions off of them as well. And to be able to make the decision that he did required something that a lot of other people don't have, and that's okay, but LeBron James has it. I want to start with the first memory, the professional debut of LeBron James. We found out he was a little bit different, or at least I realized in retrospect. At this point, he was different. First professional game against Sacramento, playing the Kings, and he has a wide open breakaway, can slam it down. The 18-year-old has unbelievable athleticism and could have left his stamp on the NBA landscape forevermore with that one moment. He chose to do something else, so surprised me. He had a teammate a couple of feet ahead. He passed it. He passed it so that they could have the wide open dunk, setting and starting a career as a distributor, a facilitator. That's what allows LeBron James at his age, with the amount of minutes that he has, to be able to have enough gas in the tank to defeat a 73-win team, arguably one of the great teams of all time. It's that strategy, it's that preparation, and that mental strength. To be able to take the criticism and say, why didn't you dunk it there? Don't you have that killer instinct? No. He sees the bigger picture. And whether he, to credit himself or anyone else, I think we can all learn a thing or two about that, about maybe taking the difficult. Because ultimately, we as a society play the outcome. If that difficult route gets you to the mountaintop, who's to say it wasn't worth it? Who's to say it wasn't worth it? James and his decision to go to Miami was one that really changed and transformed my perception of him. He was my fan favorite. I had a LeBron James Cleveland jersey with number 23 on it growing up, and I remember that summer following very closely where King James would go. Would it be Brooklyn possibly? No, it ended up being Miami. I lost a lot of respect from the perception of him taking the easy way out, going and playing with Dwayne Wade, having superior talent, getting Chris Bosh to come along with. In retrospect, I believe, LeBron James realized he couldn't win in Cleveland. Not in that context. No shot at the supporting cast. I think it stays within LeBron James. The man who had been said to have all of the answers, been hyped like no other. He didn't have the answer in Cleveland. He had to go to Miami, learn from Dwayne Wade, learn from Pat Riley. And it's that ability to say, I don't have the answer, take the difficult way, and know you're going to be criticized for it, most importantly by your hometown and state. To make that sacrifice. I'm assuming at this point the intent with how calculated LeBron James is, he knew he was going to go back to Cleveland. That was a college trip, as he's compared it. 4 years in Miami to learn, to grow, to return to his home, the best LeBron James that he could be. The 7-game series was epic. LeBron James, I will argue, had the greatest finals performance I have ever seen. And for my research, statistically, it's second to none. This was the climax of the story of LeBron James' and it even exceeded that. I've covered sports my entire career, and I've consumed sports for my entire life. I predicted this to be an epic series, but yet I couldn't have seen this coming. There was no possible way. That's why I will continue to enjoy, consume, and analyze sports. My life in sports has taught me some lessons, the biggest of which is that we play the outcome way too much. It's not about the wins and the losses. Yeah, that's what the sports mindset teaches us, that it's all about winning and losing, nothing else matters. No. Improvement matters. Growth matters. Evolution matters. If you're not first, you're last is catchy. It's funny, but it's not true. The Golden State Warriors had one of the great seasons of all time, not only in basketball, but in sports. The entertainment value we saw in the regular season, second to none. Steph Curry's individual show, arguably second to none. The supporting cast, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, the team that they have, they may not be able to return next year. And it will be a shame. The state and other fans took this for granted even a little bit. Harrison Barnes will be a free agent, likely get the max. Andrew Bogut continues to age and battles injury. Combined with the fact that Steph Curry is criminally underpaid, one of the best bargains in the league. This may be the last time we see this version of the Golden State Warriors, and while having the Splash Brothers gives you the ability to outshoot most teams from three, I think this regular season performance may be a lot more rare than we ever imagined. The reason we play the outcome in sports, it makes sense from the professional standpoint. You're a huge fan of the New York Yankees, and it hurts you to think that CC Sabathia cares less about winning than you do. I understand that. That's logical. What's not is when that mindset permeates to the lower levels. At the college level, it's detrimental, particularly at the high school level. Buzz Bissinger, in his book, Friday Night Lights, perfectly in terms of how a community and their values can have a terrible impact on the rest of their community, mainly the youth and the people who are trying to help this community with their team. Friday Night Lights, a football team with a town surrounding it. Not a football team in a town, a football team with a town surrounding it. It's not proper context. It has to be proper context if we're going to have high school and college athletics provide the role, the ultimate role of making us move forward as humans, not back. It's why I'm incredibly proud to have covered the teams that we have here at HBC. Take a team, for example, like the Winona Windhawks. John Casilius' football team didn't have the greatest expectations coming into the season. Senior running back Tanner Remlinger made sure that this community, as well as the opponents they played, wouldn't soon forget. Did they win the state title? No. Did they make an impact on Winona? Absolutely. You could say the same, with a little bit of a different twist, for Tim Gleason and the girls' basketball team at senior high. They entered the season huge class, knowing that they had experience and knowing that they had high expectations. To stay in the spotlight for as long as they did through the duration of this season and fall just short of a state title, that's not a loss. It's a tremendous success because of the lessons learned from those experiences, having been in that environment, and most importantly, having understood the support that you have within your community, well worth trading that state title for. And don't take my word for it, because the players themselves, the coaches, they've said it. So let's try, as sports fans and consumers, particularly at the lower levels, to not be so fixated on the outcome. Let's celebrate improvement. I don't think that's so much to ask. And I don't want to go so soapboxy here because it's not all bad. It's not all negative. Sports are a great thing. I just think there's a couple of ways that we can improve. And we'll talk a little bit later about some more concrete improvements. But for this one, I think it's much, much more important and should come first. In terms of local teams that I think are worth spotlighting right now, it's Winona Senior High softball once again. And I know we're going very heavy with the Winona teams, but here being in Winona, I got the chance to see them up close and get a feeling for exactly what they were up against, what their success meant. I can put it in better context than some of the other teams, but that doesn't mean that they're not out there, and that doesn't mean they're not worth talking about, because the Lewiston Altura baseball team, incredible in their ability to teach me a lesson. What do you mean by that? How did they teach you a lesson? Lewiston Altura last season, a month prior to the playoffs, was a sub-500 team. It's like they compete for very much, yet through confidence, belief in one another, and their ability to play great baseball at the right time, to peak at the right time. It's very important in this life, and particularly in sports. It allowed them to make a run to the state tournament. While they didn't win the title, and they didn't win it again this year, they made the run twice. They showed that there is that formula. It's very difficult to put together and hone in on the exact recipe, but there's a formula that can be had when nobody you but the guys in that locker room. It's a very powerful thing. We see it in professional sports oftentimes, but I think for myself, having come from small Milton, Wisconsin, where we didn't have any powerhouse programs that I was a part of, that gives me hope that oftentimes we hear people dismiss high school sports as the haves and the have-nots. Sometimes that can be true, and sometimes it can be unfortunate, but sometimes it can provide a life lesson, and sometimes it can provide the determination and the will to improve. Kudos to Lewiston Altura baseball for continuing to improve and build off of their success last season. It's what makes this job fun, and it ultimately should provide an underdog in any environment to have the confidence that they, too, can succeed. Finally, bringing it home, I want to introduce a segment I just referenced a moment ago, the sports improvement segment. I want to improve the game of sports, whether it be just making the game a little bit more entertaining or maybe having a true human impact in terms of making us healthier and happier as a species. The biggest thing here for this first one is not necessarily going to be earth-shattering or groundbreaking. We'll work our way into that. Let's reseed the playoffs. The NFL, well, there's no reason not to have it reseeded. We heard the discussion after the playoffs last season. In the NBA, I think they're even more of a dire need of reseeding the playoffs. Imagine, even if you just did it after the quarterfinals, we'd have Cleveland, Oklahoma City, and Toronto, and Golden State. Would that come to the finals? Possibly. But that's not why I'm making this point. I'm making this point because I think we can capture some of what makes March Madness great and apply it to today. If we had the teams reseeded, you'd see some more unfamiliar matchups. Undoubtedly, you would have seen LeBron James and Kevin Durant play, the odds tell us, more than just the one time that they met in the finals. And I think that's good for the game. I also think it's good for the fans, good for the coaches even, to provide them with the challenge of having an unfamiliar opponent. You only played twice in 1 year because they're from the Western Conference, not your Eastern Conference opponent, which you've seen 4 times. It's not earth-shattering, and I don't think it should play a role in your perception of the past playoffs. But moving forward, we can be better. We can do better. We can create more compelling playoff matchups. And that's what I want to do by reseeding the NBA playoffs after every round. I gave the example of the semifinals just to show you how things could change. Let's reseed after every round. There's no reason not to. And finally, I want to wrap up this initial episode here thanking my father. Chris Schwartzlow has been a tremendous influence in my life, and whether you want to wish a happy Father's Day after seeing this to your father, or maybe you have a coach or other mentor in your life that made an impact, tell him thank you. Thank you, Chris Schwartzlow, because I'll always have a mentor. I'll always have a coach that I can go to and know you see it from my side of things. You see it, both the good and the bad, through a similar lens. That's a very valuable thing. The biggest privilege I've ever had in all of my time in sports was to play for my father. Granted, it was just elementary school softball, but I'll never forget preparing for the tournament, wanting badly to win a championship, to make my dad's investment in coaching our team worthwhile. I thought winning was the only way to do so. But that's what makes sports great, how you can learn in the time since. I think about that frequently and now realize that more valuable than any win or loss was the investment that I made with my father, that we made, preparing to try to win, to do everything we could in John's Vianney. We didn't beat St. John's. I can smile about it today. It's been almost 2 decades now, so it's good I'm coming to grips with it, but I can smile because of the fact that I know my father was proud, and I was proud of my father. Maybe a little sentimental here to close this final episode, but thank you, Chris Schwartzlow. Provided me with more than I could ever ask, and as I'm making a dream become a reality, I want to thank you for that. Your life, your experience, and your actions have helped put me in this position to succeed, and I'm looking forward to continuing to make you proud. To all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. We'll see you next time, and until then, keep improving.